Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are live here on the world's most dangerous podcast, Straight Shooting with Stevie Ray. I am your host, Stevie Ray. That is me, and that is what you are watching right now. And our special guest tonight will be JBL. He's going to grace us with his presence. And we're going to chop it up about a few things. He's an old friend of mine, and as you can see, for the last few nights, for the last few weeks, we've been getting some stellar, top-notch guests on the show. And you guys know we also are live on YouTube. And we're also live on Twitch. So the few people right now that are out there watching on Facebook, so I can only be on here for so long. And just like to get you guys to kind of tag along for a few minutes before I start. Thank you. Who was that, Tony? Thank you. So I grew up watching Looker and Dominate Tag Team. You have paved the way for Africa, man. Hey, I appreciate that, Tony. Hey, appreciate you joining the show, man. Now go to that Twitch app so you can holler at your boy, man. Queen, what's going on? Queen, you know, when you pop up on my Twitch, I also know that you're watching on YouTube at the same time. So I know when you're watching, it's got the icon next to your picture there. So I appreciate you tagging along. So, man, we're going to wait and see if my boy is going to be checking in here in a few minutes. And we're going to get ready to chop it up. Because like I said, tonight, we're doing the show a little earlier, about 30 minutes earlier than what we usually do the show. And because he's got some things he's doing right now, so he's kind of squeezing me in. And I got to go over to the radio station as soon as I leave here for a photo shoot and a video shoot. So I've already done one podcast today. You know, we did the black and white taping today with Vince Russo. That went very, very well. You know, we ended up going a little longer than what we usually go. But the conversation and what we were talking about was going so well. You know, we kind of just went from one thing to another. But that's how it goes, man, when you're having good conversation. That's how it goes when you chop it up with someone that both of you guys are on the same wavelength. And that's what conversation is all about. That's what this podcast is all about. So, with all that being said, at the end of the day, hey, that's what it's about, you know? Yeah, man, Johnny Hawk. You know what, man? Josh, I'm going to have to ask him about all those names, man. I'm going to have to ask him about the Johnny Hawk, the Justin Hawk Bradshaw, then Bradshaw, then JBL, and maybe it was a couple of more in there that I don't know about, man. Because that's a lot of names, man. So I'm going to have to ask him about that, you know. What's with all the names, you know? When I first met him, he was Johnny Hawk, you know, and that's when we met back in the global days and had a lot of fun together. But, you know, it's going to be a thrill talking to him. And last night, man, I'm glad all you guys tuned in for last night, man, because we had a great show last night talking with Ricky Santana, man. And he was able to tell us about some of the trials and tribulations he's going through in the business, man. That's, you know, I couldn't stop laughing, man. I don't know if I can't remember the last time I laughed that hard, you know, talking about a business that I've been in for so long. That was amazing. What's up, John? But glad he was able to come on. Been trying to get him on for quite some time now. But I got a lot of people booked for the next couple of weeks. I'm trying to get as many people as I can booked before we take off for the Christmas holidays. And next week, two great guests. I can't tell you who they are right now, but they're coming. You got very interesting shows next week. Very interesting shows. And that's going to be, you know, I can't wait. I can't wait. I'm very excited. Very excited about a lot of things that's going on right now with the podcast. Like I said, we're streaming live on Facebook now. And not only that, the Patreon channel is almost finished. Like I told you guys, we were redoing the Patreon channel. So that's going to be wild, man. We got a lot of stuff on there, man, that we're going to be doing, that we're putting together. So it's going to be, that's pretty exciting. I'm pretty excited about it. As long as we do everything in the correct way, I think it's going to work out fine. But, you know, heck, it is what it is, man. Let me go over here and see who's what's going on over here with the what's up, John? But yeah, glad everybody's able to tag along tonight. I got a few more minutes I can stay on Facebook before I have to cut everything off and go to, because you know, you guys on Facebook, you can't see the podcast, but you know, so if you guys go over to one of the streaming outlets that we're going, you know, go over to Facebook, you go over to Twitch, and you can see the show live, you know. But like I said, I had a lot of people hitting me up on Facebook saying, I can't hear the show. Well, you can't hear the show because I just got the live feed on, looking at my face right now. If you want to look at me and the guest, you have to go to Facebook or Twitch. So with all that being said, just download the app, man. And you know, and you got the YouTube button app on your phone. Just hit it, man. Go find your boy so we can chop it up. That's what the show is about, man. But hey, all you guys out there on Facebook right now, man, I got 3 more minutes I can let you ride, because my main man is in the waiting room right now. He's in the green room right now, and I can't have him holding on, because, you know, that's a big shot, man. You know, you can't leave a big shot holding on, man. You know, a lot of guys we have on the show, they're okay. But top guys, man, that's how the business works. You take care of the top guys, because those are the guys that make everything move. Brandy, you let them know what's happening, Brandy. John, you let them know what's happening, because, hey, it is what it is. And that's why we call this the world's most dangerous podcast, because when people are willing to step into the danger zone, man, we chop it up, bro. We chop it up like no other. This is not your regular everyday podcast. It's not for the weak at heart. It's not for the slow. It's not for the people that are pedestrian. This is for the people that make things happen. And right here is where things happen. You know, yeah, that's right. That's right, Terrence. Johnny Hawk. That's where I met him. I think that was his name when we first met. Johnny Hawk. So we're going to ask him about that, man. And if you guys want to call into the show, 832-243-4428. 832-243-4428. You want to call in and ask JBL anything? He'll be willing to answer the questions, but make sure you call after we've had some conversation. But it is what it is. But for all you guys out there on Facebook, I got to get ready to get out of here because the show is about to start. Go to Twitch, Stevie Ray TV, go to YouTube, and we'll chop it up. But right now, show is about to start. My man is in the house. There he is. What's going on,
Stevie Ray?
You're looking good, man. You're looking good.
I don't know about that. I'm looking old, brother. You're looking good.
Dog. You look like the day I first saw you, bro. When you
That's a long time ago. You were the Ebony Experience, and I was Johnny Hawk.
You know what? A couple of fans just was asking me, say, Johnny Hawk, I forgot about that. And then I was like, I thought it was Justin Hawk. Wasn't it Justin Hawk at one time?
Justin. Yeah, it was Justin Hawk when I went to WWE. See, I was Johnny Hawk. I went down and worked a match for Killer Tim Brooks, and there was some guy, Ethan Hawk, I think was his name. Never saw him again. And he says, you look like his cousin, so he named me Johnny Hawk because of that. I never even saw the guy after that. So I was stuck with the name. And then when I went to WWE, Vince McMahon wanted to name me Justin Bradshaw.
Right.
I figured I'd be there for, a couple years because heels didn't stay very long in WWE.
Right.
I figured I'd be there 2 years and probably go back to Japan. So I wanted to get part of the name kept. Right. And I said, well, can you name me Justin Hawk? And because that was pretty close to John Hawk. Right. And he goes, we'll just name you Justin Hawk Bradshaw.
Right.
That's how That's how I got 3 names.
Then the Bradshaw, the regular one name, and then the JBL. I'm like, wait a minute, man. I know this dude. This dude got more names than Apollo Creed. You know, Apollo Creed, you know what I'm saying? The master of disaster, the king of Sting. I'm like, man,
I
got enough.
So long. I just kept changing characters until something worked.
Well, hey, man, it all worked, and I enjoyed the whole thing, man. From coming out with the car with the horns on it, man, to wearing the big hats like, the guy from Dallas, that gimmick, the JR type thing.
That's what I saw it as. I saw it as like a modern day JR Ewing. That's really how I saw it. Vince, somebody asked him about it later. He said, was this kind of like a JR Ewing? Because that's what I said in the media. And Vince looked at them like they were crazy. He didn't see it like that at all. But to me, it was JR Ewing.
Right. I mean, that's what I got from it, Yeah. Well, being from Texas, that resonates with us. You know what I'm saying? That show and how you did that with the suit and the cowboy hat. And, hey, man, it worked, man. It worked. Got a lot of mileage out of it, and people still talking about it to this day.
Up in West Texas. I grew up in Sweetwater, Texas, and oil was really big back in the 80s. And then it went in 70s, and then oil went south, and everybody got broke. But guys had DeLoreans, Lamborghinis. I mean, these guys were filthy rich all of a sudden overnight. And these guys would wear their cowboy hats. They'd throw money around. They were not good guys. They were guys you hated. And so when I became JBL, that's what I modeled myself after, was all these guys I saw when I was a kid that used to ride around and throw their money around. I hated those guys.
Really?
And I thought if I hate those guys, everybody else is going to hate me because I'm one of those guys. And that's one of the inspiration I had for the character.
What is Sweetwater near? What's the nearest big town to Sweetwater?
It's near the huge town of Abilene, Texas.
Exactly.
Near nothing. Middle of Odessa is about 120 miles straight down Interstate 20.
Right, brother. Yeah.
About 120 miles the other way.
Right. Sweetwater. Because I know somebody from Sweetwater, but I can't remember who it is.
Well, Barry Windham always said he was from Sweetwater, but he wasn't. He uses that as his gimmick hometown. So when I went to WWE, they claimed I was from Roscoe, which is a town about 8 miles from Sweetwater. So Barry always said he was from Sweetwater, but I don't think he ever lived there. He lived outside of Austin when he was in Texas.
Okay. Yeah, but I think I've been there before, man, with my trucking company. I think we took some stuff for oil field stuff down there.
Yeah,
Sweetwater.
You drove right through Sweetwater. Everybody's been through Sweetwater. There's no stop out on and a pretty good football team, a 4A football team.
Okay. But man, what really resonates with me is so many of us came from Global, brother. So many of us came out of the Global Wrestling Federation, and it's like the little building. And so many of us learned from the veterans. I had Ricky Santana on last night, and I was telling them the veterans that took me and my brother under their wing and beat the crap out of us, showed us how to do what we know, made us respect the business, the whole thing. We relished the whole thing. And I was telling them, I said, bro, when I got to WCW, I was like, really? This ain't nothing, bro. I came from Global. Guys got down. You know what I'm saying? It's like when you practice, it's like killer in football. Then you got like a scrimmage game. You know what I'm saying? I was like, this is more work, but the level of how hard those guys worked back in the day, those guys coming from a whole other era. And they're passing that
before hardcore.
That's crazy. You know what I'm talking about.
Stiff, hard wrestling, and it was snug. Guys just enjoyed working that way. I mean, the Von Erich boys like being out there with a fist fight. I mean, it was unbelievable.
Yeah, and I'm like, did you have that same experience when you went to? Now you go up to New York, man, and you work more. You know what I'm saying? You work more, but the physicality was different.
The physicality was different. There's no doubt about it. I mean, the physicality in the Sportatorium was the old style, rough, tough wrestling. Plus, the ring was hard as a rock. At least for a while. They changed it once, and then it became like a trampoline. But for a while, it was freaking like concrete, man.
that ring was like, somebody getting slammed on a dirt yard. You know what I'm saying? But
when I first went to WWE, they had Dick Ebersol, I think, for NBC. From what I heard, he didn't like the bouncy ring, so he made the ring as hard as a rock so it didn't move on television. So a lot of people thought the rings were soft up there. Most of them were just like the Sportatorium. I mean, they were so freaking hard, but you didn't know which ring you had because you had a bunch of different rings. So you wanted to watch the first couple of matches to see if those guys were wincing in pain. Because if it was a tough ring, you started calling off all those backdrops and suplexes and everything because that stuff hurt.
But leaving there, man, leaving Global, how did you get the call to go to New York? How did that whole thing work? How did that whole thing come about?
I went to Japan first. In fact, I think my first trip was with your brother Booker.
I know. I told that story last night to Ricky Santana. And he was like, well, how did that go? I said, they didn't want to bring me and my brother back together. And he said, well, why is that? I said,
been there before, and I hadn't been there yet, and that was my first time going. So Booker and I went. But I think Booker and I think on that tour also went to Korea.
Right,
we went to Korea. South Korea. We were there for about a week or so.
Right.
I was just working in Japan, and I moved my way up a little bit. I worked with Kendo Nagasaki first, Mr. Sakurada, passed away last year. Right. And then got a deal with Tenryu. Went with Tenryu when Tenryu split from, I believe, Inoki. And then I got the call to go to work for Otto Vance in Europe. And I worked 2 years in Europe for Otto Vance and Peter William.
Okay.
Fit Finley, Tony St. Clair, Drew, good grief. He just passed away a few years ago. Good guy. I can't remember his name. Nick McMichael, the referee. I mean, it was just DDA with the referee. I mean, Luke Poirier was a babyface there. Rambo later worked in WWE.
Right.
Really top-notch talent. Was there about 2 years, and somehow Bruce Pritchard and Pat Patterson, I'd sent tapes everywhere, found a tape and looked at it, and literally I was in Bremen, Germany. It was freezing cold. I'm staying in this little bitty trailer. It was a rotten trailer. Didn't have a bathroom. Had to go into the arena to use the bathroom. I was there 2 years like that. And they told me, said, you're going to go down to the payphone on the corner, and Bruce Pritchard's going to call you from WWE. And I thought, what a rip. So I had an umbrella. It was raining. It was terrible. And I'm standing there, and sure enough, the phone rang. It was Bruce Pritchard and Pat Patterson. And I don't know how they got the payphone number. I've never even asked them. And they said, would you come through and do a tryout match? I worked with Savio Vega, and they hired me. And that was December of 95. But I got there from Europe.
Wow. I hadn't heard that story, but I always wondered, man, I thought maybe they saw you on Global or something like that.
No, I sent tapes to everybody. I sent all kinds of tapes, I edited them horribly and put them together and sent them everywhere. And it sat in the WWE offices. They told me for 6-8 months. And finally, Bruce and Pat were sitting there just looking through some tapes one day, and they came across mine. And they go, who is this kid? And they said, never heard of him. And they did some questioning. They found out I was from Texas, worked in Japan, and I was living in Europe working. And somehow they got hold of me in Europe, and that's how I got the deal. No one knew. I came to freaking Philadelphia, flew back from Europe, been over there 2 years. Tony Gurria threw me out of the locker room. He said, what are you here for? And I said, well, I'm here for a tryout. And he goes, we're not having tryouts today. And so I said, okay. I said, am I thrown out? And he goes, yeah. So I said, okay. I got my stuff. I went to the airport, and it was a snowstorm, and I couldn't get out.
Right.
And I stayed there, and I thought, you know what? I'll go back tomorrow. I got nothing else to do. And went back the next day and had a tryout match with Savio. First match. There's about 200 people in the arena, literally 200 people. It was snowing like crazy. Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. You put everybody on one side.
I know exactly what that is.
Try to make it look like it was some type of crowd there, which there wasn't. Worked this match with Savio and come back, and Gerald Briscoe and J.J. Dillon pulled me aside and said, we know nothing about you, but we want to sign you. And I said, well, I'm supposed to go to WCW next week. And they said, well, we don't want you to go. And I said, well, if you're signing me, I won't go. And they said, well, we'll sign you, fly out, meet Vince. And then it all worked out from there.
Wow, man, what a story. I love hearing those stories like that because you don't get to hear them anymore, man. Everything has changed so much that, man, you don't go through what I call the wrench time. You don't the wrench time, like building a car, you know what I'm saying? And it finally gets put together. But it's like now it's like just totally different. Me and my man was talking about that last night also, man. Things have just totally changed. But hey, it is what it is, man. Everything changes, man. Nothing stays the same. And I was also I did another podcast earlier. I do a podcast with Vince Russo every Thursday. We call it Black and White. And what we were talking about was unions, which I thought was a very interesting conversation. Unions in professional wrestling. And I was like, he was telling me about one of the politicians. Was it Andrew Yang?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's been pushing for something like that, and I'm like, okay, politicians got a lot of power, but we talking about Vince McMahon here, brother. That's like Nino Brown of pro wrestling. I'm like, this, how you gonna pull that off?
After the Bret Hart screw job, they call it, up in Montreal, the next day there were some guys talking about forming a union and stuff, and they asked me about it. I said, guys, I'm making more money than I've ever made in my life. Right. I ain't joining nothing. I'm getting paid. And I'm getting paid more than I've ever dreamed of making. I ain't joining nothing.
Yeah, because he.
So I don't know. Look, I don't know what it would solve. I mean, the guys are making good money. I make good money. I had my own health insurance. I mean, God, come on, man. I think sometimes people get caught up in the political mainstream of hey, we should do this, we should do that. Yeah. The question to me is, are guys being taken care of? And as far as I know, they're very well taken care of. I was taken care of beyond my wildest dreams.
Well, that's the same thing he was asking me about, certain contractual things that I had. And I'm like, hey, brother, I don't remember really being disappointed about anything. The only thing was when we came in back in those days, they made you earn your keep. You know what I'm saying? They made you earn your keep. They wasn't going to start you off on this. They start you off on this. And let's see how hungry you are.
Yeah, when I first went to WWE headquarters, I never met Vince. I didn't meet him that night. I had the tryout match. I talked to Jerry Briscoe and J.J. Dillon. They're the ones that agreed to sign me. And I went up there and I met with J.J. Dillon and Lisa Wolf, who was part of Talent Relations at the time, and Vince were the ones in the room. Right. Vince walked in and he said, hey, here, threw the contract down. He goes, this contract isn't worth the paper it's written on. And he goes, but I guarantee you the handshake behind it. And the contract was that old WWE contract. It guaranteed you 10 shows a year at $150 each. That's all it guaranteed you. But it was 100% upside. And I never cared. I thought, you know what? If I do well, I should be paid well. And if I don't, I shouldn't be paid well. I think all sports should be that way. I mean, now they have a guaranteed base minimum, which I like, but you can make several times that. When I had my run, I made probably 8 times my base minimum, to me, that was what you should do.
It's just like football. Everybody thinks everybody in football makes millions and millions of dollars. And I tried to explain to him, I said, brother, it's 1,700 guys. If everybody made millions and millions of dollars, you wouldn't have a league. And then you got a lot of turnover within the first 2-3 years. I say, if you're not a top draft choice, first, and let's say you're a quarterback, then that's one thing. But if you're a defensive back, that's another thing. If you're a running back, it's a scale for everything. Now, let's say you're a 3rd-round draft choice getting paid, like you said, the minimum at running back. And let's say you have a couple of years that you ran for 1,700 yards. Now you're in a whole nother category. But they made you earn it.
Right.
Because,
look at Jalen Hurts and Carson Wentz. Wentz is having a bad season. A lot of people are blaming him, maybe because Frank Reich has left, as coach, but I don't know what happened. But if Jalen Hurts plays well, he's making, $800,000 a year. That's what Carson Wentz.
Second round draft choice. Might not be that much. Then again, it changed over the last couple of years. You might be right.
Carson Wentz is making more per game right now. Watch how that changes next year if Jalen Hurts does well. And that's, to me, that's appropriate. If you do well, you should be paid well. If you don't, you shouldn't be paid well at all.
Yeah, you're right. And that's how the wrestling business is. Well, you remember back in the days when we first came in, WCW, man, it was where you were on the card, for the first couple of months. Then they started giving out the contracts and stuff at a, depending on where you were. We were grunts, so we didn't complain about nothing. We first got in there, hell, we wasn't even making $1,000. We didn't care. You know what I'm saying? We're going to make it work, brother. I just want to wrestle. I didn't care about the money like what you're talking about. I didn't care about that. I just want to get in and wrestle. That's all I cared about. All the other stuff started to manifest itself, and it's like, this how you get paid? Oh, okay, now I know what's up. But we were just hungry for the business, bro. Because we was around veterans, like I said, back in Global, that put so much stuff in your ear. The last thing they ever talked about was money.
That's right.
If you know what I'm saying, other than save it, that was it.
Right. Yeah.
If you make some money, save it. That's all they said.
Dan Hansen told me, he goes, you want some advice? Don't buy a boat. That was his whole advice. Don't buy a boat. I love Stan.
Who told you that?
His point was don't spend money frivolously.
Right.
Pay for your house, get it paid off. And that was the old adage. Remember, people said buy your house, get it paid off, pump gas, and pay for groceries.
But man, all your time that you spent over there, where were you living in Europe?
In a trailer. I was living in a trailer most of the time. When I first went over there, I was living in youth hostels around, they have a bathroom down the hall, the cheapest place I could find. And then I bought a trailer. It was 16 feet long by 6 feet wide. Bought this old car, Johnny South. He was kind of a ripoff of Animal, not a Hawk of the Road Warriors.
Were you in England?
No, but I bought the car from Johnny South in Camille Bay, Wales, into Europe. So I bought it. Johnny was getting rid of this old car, and I stopped off in Wales and bought the car from him. Bought a trailer from I can't remember who, and then I hauled that trailer all around Europe, and that's where I lived, was in that trailer. Didn't have air conditioning, didn't have heat. It was miserable. 6 feet wide. I couldn't even sleep. I'm 6'6". So I couldn't even sleep across. I had to sleep crosswise on the bed. 16 feet long.
Goodness. Now, one of the guys sent me a message today about asking you about Joey Styles. And I'm like, brother, why don't you just call into the show and you ask him about Joey Styles? So I guess he's too lame, he's too afraid to call. So I'm going to ask you about what this guy wants to know. That's if you want to talk about it.
I don't care.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Joey got me up with a pretty good punch, I think, on the Iraq trip. Well, we've been drinking, and Joey's a friend of mine, and got carried away, and I had a pretty good black eye from it. We were friends afterwards, shook hands. Those things happen.
Now, back at WCW, we used to hear about what's going on in WWE, and you guys will hear about what's going on in WCW. Now, guys would always ask me, hey, man, you know that dude, Bradshaw? Yeah, man. He's a Texas boy just like me, man. We all started together. Hey, man, I hear he's a bully. Dog, he never bullied me or nobody I know. I don't know nothing about that. I'm like, yeah, man. Two or three people came up to me and said this. And I'm like, and even when I used to come down and watch you guys, you and Ron was together there and watch you guys work, I never brought that up. You know what I'm saying? Because frankly, me, I don't give a shit, man. Bully to slap the shit out of somebody. I don't care. That ain't got nothing to do with me. But, man, where did that moniker come from, man? What was going on with that?
I don't know. We how it was back in the day. We ripped like crazy. And I was probably the last one left out of that old crew. And
okay.
That was to me, that's, I think, what it was. I don't think that, the guys can have whatever opinion they have. If that's the truth to them, then that's the truth in their mind.
Right.
Most of these guys were guys who were looking for somebody to blame for their lack of success. And so I was the guy at that time, and there were most of those guys who say stuff like that are guys who didn't make it in the company.
Probably so.
Look, if I bullied them, I'm sorry. Get over it, man.
Hey, man, you and Ron had a good run together, and I really enjoyed that, man. Give me a little bit about the background on that, man, because you guys, man, I really enjoyed it. I mean, from a fan's point of view, man, I was like, hey, those are my boys, man. That was great. I loved it.
Ron and I had such a great chemistry. We were best friends before we ever tagged up. And
okay.
So I think the reason they stuck us together was because me and Ron were together all the time. It was me, Ron, and usually Charles Wright, the Godfather, and maybe Teddy Long sometimes. Well, a lot of times riding with us. And we just had a good time. And Vince McMahon told me one time, he goes, I love what you and Ron do when you sit around and just BS, have some beers. He goes, that to me is what guys do. He goes, I want to put that on television. And so that's how the whole thing came about, just because me and Ron were me and Ron. I mean, that was pretty much us, just being us. We never scripted nothing. I mean, we got to work with some really cool people. Got to work with Mr. T, Rebecca Romaine, LL Cool J. You know, any star that came in got to come back and be part of our APA stuff. Yeah. And that stuff was hardly even scripted. It was just, hey, guys, just have some fun, be entertaining, and interact with these guys.
Man, I loved it, man. I loved it. But then the JBL, bro. Oh, man. The JBL with the long limo, bro. With the cowboy boots. That was you. That was you. That's straight out of Texas, baby. I loved it, man. That run was, oh, man, I loved it. Tell us about that run, man. That run.
I had so much fun with that run. I've been wanting to do that for some time. I had this character in mind, you know, and like I say, to me, it was like a modern-day J.R. Ewing, you know, from Dallas. Vince didn't see it that way. I'm not sure how he saw it. I never talked to him about it. He always saw the JBL character just kind of in a silo that you know, he'd kind of thought of. So to him, it was not that character. To me, it was.
Right.
And I was doing so much with the soldiers overseas, going over there all the time, that they didn't really want me to turn heel. And then all of a sudden, they needed somebody right away. Then Big Show was hurt. Brock had left to go to NFL and UFC. Right. Kurt Angle was hurt. They needed somebody to go against Eddie Guerrero in about 6 weeks at the Staples Center. And they called me up, and I really thought my career was probably over. I'd had a bicep surgery.
Right.
I had 2 hernia surgeries. And I really thought I was kind of done. And they said, hey, we want you to do this character. We need you in 6 weeks to be ready for the Staples Center with Eddie Guerrero. And so they debuted the character. It didn't work at first, didn't work for a couple weeks. I mean, I was just dying. People just remembered me as being Ron Simmons' partner.
Yeah,
you know,
right.
Everybody loves Ron, and people like the APA, so they didn't see me as this different character. And then we did the heart attack angle with Eddie Guerrero's mother down in El Paso on Mother's Day weekend. Right. And we filmed it as if it was security cameras. And once that tape hit the airwaves, I needed security everywhere I went. Man, we were wrestling. Oh my God, we were wrestling in Southwest United States. You know, large Latino, Hispanic populations. Man, they would show up, and I had to have security. We had people jumping in the ring all the time. It was wild.
Wow.
That night when Eddie's mom went down, she was 74. I was standing right next to her, and I had my hand like this. It looked like I was grabbing her, but this way she could guide herself down, you know, and where she wouldn't get hurt.
Right.
That place is, I don't know, 10,000 people. It went completely silent. It just silence. It was scary. We had state troopers around the ring. We knew it was going to be hairy, and they got me out of there pretty quick. Told me I better not even stay in town, that they can't guarantee my safety. I had to drive all the way to Odessa to fly out. I mean, it was rough. And then the next,
oh my goodness!
Once that footage aired, everywhere we went, it was like that. I mean, everywhere we went, I had heat like you wouldn't believe. It was unreal. And Eddie was, you know, I always say this: if it hadn't been for Eddie, there'd be no JBL. Eddie was such a big part of that. He came up with that idea. He and his brother Chavo came up with that idea for the heart attack. And then Eddie would call me all times of day, night. He go, got an idea for you, Essay. Got an idea for you. He loved the JBL character, and he also knew that he needed that foil to draw money at the Staples Center and going forward. You know, we didn't know if we could sell tickets. We ended up setting an attendance record at the Staples Center.
Really?
For that night. Yeah, Roy Jones Jr., I understand, broke it years later, but man, it was 99% Hispanic, it looked like. They all wanted JBL to die. it was crazy.
Woo,
I got to tell you another thing about Pat Patterson. We were sitting there at Staples Center, and we had this first big match. Now, I know if this match doesn't go well, I'm done. I'm retired. I'm finished. You know, put a fork in me. So I know I've got to hit a home run here. I got the right guy in Eddie Guerrero, and Pat outlined this really good finish for us. And so I'm sitting there listening to it. And I was watching Eddie, and he just becomes disengaged at some moment. And so when Pat left, I said, Eddie, what's wrong? And he goes, I don't feel it. I said, you don't feel which part? He goes, any of it. I said, okay. So I went and talked to Pat, you know, who's just an awesome human being. And I said, Pat, listen, Eddie doesn't feel it. He goes, which part? I said, any of them. And he said, "What do you want to do?" I said, "Can we call it out there?" And he had so much trust in Eddie that he said, "Go out there on the pay-per-view. We didn't even have a finish.
Wow.
We didn't have anything planned." And he goes, "Guys, I trust you." And what he meant was he trusts Eddie. He didn't trust me. He trusted Eddie.
Right.
But that whole thing was called on the fly, and it was just unbelievable. Eddie was doing stuff that Eddie couldn't. I love Eddie, and Eddie's a smart guy. But Eddie couldn't put a match together sitting here with you right now on Zoom or whatever we're on.
Right.
But if you go out there in the ring and you put people around you, he comes up with stuff that would just blow your mind. He would do backdrops into tables. It's all called 100% on the fly. It was insane being out there with him. The closest thing I've ever seen to Eddie, and he may have been a little better. You know, it's hard to measure greatness, is Shawn Michaels, especially back in the 90s.
Right.
Shawn was just like a lightning bolt or like an electric cord that's unplugged, you know, it's not grounded. I mean, he came out and the whole place just lit up. Eddie was like that.
Right. Man, that was a hell of a run, though. That was a hell of a run. It was different. Came out of the blue. I didn't even see it coming, you know. But it was very entertaining, man. So I got to give you and Eddie props, you know, because I worked with him in WCW also. Him and his nephew.
Eddie came up to me one time. He goes, "I got one for you." He said, "Get on the microphone and tell them my ancestors didn't come over here in a boat. My ancestors didn't come over here in an inner tube. They came in a boat." I said, "Eddie, you're going to get me killed." That was his line. Of course, I got blamed for everything that he was feeding me all kinds of crazy lines. It was awesome.
But that kind of heat, you know, that's the kind of heat we used to see when we was growing up. You know what I'm saying? We would see the ethnic, you know, insults and stuff like that. Well, nowadays you can't. Well, I guess you get close to it nowadays, but you know, people with the social media thing, they'll go crazy and put the pressure on sponsors and the things like that. Man, I miss that kind of heat, man.
To me, it's either a work or it isn't. You know, you can't say, "Well, don't know that. You shouldn't do that because that's in bad taste." Well, it's all in bad taste. You know, if you're a bad guy, sticking a person's head on a pole like they did in Walking Dead is in really bad taste.
Right.
But that's what makes the bad guy the bad guy. You know,
me and my brother. Go ahead. What were we saying?
I'm sorry. To me, it's either a work or it isn't. You know,
exactly.
If it is, then you should let heels be heels. You know, you should let them get the heat that they can get. You know, I understand.
Exactly.
You don't cross now. I understand that. But people say, "Well, I don't know. That's just a little bit in bad taste."
Yeah.
Come on. If you like it, it's not heat.
That's the thing, man. It's like, how do you sugarcoat something that people want?
Right.
People want this. Me and my brother used to do, we were heels with the Harlem Heat thing. Because you remember back in Global, we were baby faces. And we actually wanted to be baby faces when we got to WCW. But, you know, they wanted heels. But beat it as it may. So when we did the house shows, me and my brother would do the reverse racism. We would do the reverse racism. We did this every night in every town that we went to. Sherry would get on the mic when we come in and she would say her spiel. Then my brother would get the mic and say, he would take the old Eddie Murphy line. Whereas, let me see exactly how he put it, you know. "I don't like rednecks. And you people are rednecks." You remember Eddie Murphy did that in the...
Oh, yeah.
I don't like rednecks. So people always, when we first went to Japan, everybody used to call my brother Eddie Murphy. They say, look, all the Japanese guys say, "Hey, Eddie Murphy." But so he took that Eddie Murphy line. From what I see, all you guys are rednecks. Then he'd get a mic to me, and I would go, "Oh, yeah, we forgot one thing. And for all you black people out there," no, I said no, "for all you Uncle Toms out there that's rooting for me and my brother, we got here without you. We don't need you."
Ron Simmons, one time, we're down in South Africa. Ron was probably the first black heavyweight champion, which is how he liked to identify himself, first African American heavyweight champion.
Right.
And Ron would get out there. It was with the Nation head Crush with him at the time, and Ron could cut a heck of a promo. And he'd sit up there and explain to him, "I'm not an African American. I'm an American. I had nothing to do with you people." And it just makes me go nuts. So we get to Johannesburg. And when we go there to check in, and all the people are checking their guns at the gate. I mean, the people literally were packing heat, going in the freaking shop and prepare the guns. So Ron gets up there to cut his promo. We're all watching because we know there's guns everywhere. And he's got all these laser lights on him. And he starts looking around. He goes, "Let me tell you something. We're great. Tell him, Crush." It was awesome.
So some people here, he still got the bead on him. He's got the red light on him.
He had beads all over him, all over it. He's about to cut this promo, and he's sitting there. He's thinking, okay, these are probably laser pens. He saw a lot of weapons being checked at the gate. We're great. Tell him, Crush. Crush got the microphone. Now the beads go to Crush. Crush goes, "Yeah," and hand the microphone back. That's all he said.
You know what? As many times as we went to doing what we did, and we're working with the Nasty Boys, and we're working with Bagwell and the Patriot, working with the Steiners and all these guys. The only time we really got the kind of heat that you got, because people kind of went with it like, they don't really mean that. You know what I'm saying? It was kind of like that. They don't really mean that. But we get the heat for the match, but nobody wanted to beat us up afterwards, except for one time. One time. And guess what state it was in? Texas. my state, Texas.
It's easy to be the heel in your home state.
Check this out. You speaking of Crush, my boy Brian Adams, man, who me and Brian used to ride him down the road together when he came over to WCW. So, you know, God rest his soul, man. He was like a brother to me, man, on the road, because we did everything together. Because we were doing the NWO thing. You remember that?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So he was in the Air Force. I remember he had told me he was in the military. He was in the Air Force. So me and my brother getting ready to go out and work the Nasty Boys. We were in what's the military base here?
Fort Hood?
Yeah.
Texas?
Yeah, Fort Hood. We was in Fort Hood. And main event. And there's a bunch of African Americans in the audience. That's at the, I guess they live there also. I'm not very familiar with military bases. I've only been on a few of them in my life. And I don't know a lot about the military as far as branches and stuff like that and the animosity they got with each other. So he ripped me. He said, "Hey, man," because we had been doing a few times. He said, "When you do your stick tonight, finish with this. And if you guys were real men, you would have joined the Air Force like I did." Okay, you know, I was trying to get heat. We do our stick. I tell the people, you know, all you Uncle Toms, blah, blah, blah. And I say, "Oh, yeah, and I got one more thing. For all you Army brats, if you thought you were real men, you would have joined the Air Force just like I did, you know." Then the whole mood changed. We did the match. We getting heat. The people hated us. We did the match. We were like, this is pretty good, man. We got some real heat tonight. But this is real heat. This is real heat. We get through with the match. We go in the back. Here come these two military guys, MP type guys, and say, "You know, we got to get you guys out of here." And me and my brother like, "For what? What's going on?" These guys waiting a mob waiting to beat me and my brother up over. But I'm like, what do? We do that every night. But I didn't know about the military thing. They took that personal. And then I was like, that damn Brian Adams, man, wait till I see him. Then when I see him at the hotel, he just takes off because he already know he's laughing. He just takes off. He's like, I knew it was going to happen. I said, "Man, why you setting me up like that? I could have gotten killed, bro." And he was like, "Man, I didn't know it was going to go over like that." That's the only time, man.
I was in Dallas, and I'm a lifelong Cowboy fan, man. I grew up on Roger Staubach, Bob Lilly, and the boys. You know, man, Tony Dorsett.
You gotta look like Bob. You gotta look like Bob Lilly.
Yeah, from Throckmorton, Texas. Yeah.
You gotta favor him, man.
We're in there, and Tony Dorsett is right at the ringside. I remember when they signed Dorsett. You know, man, the guy was freaking awesome, man. You know, as a Cowboy fan, we love Dorsett. So I'm cutting a promo, and I'm bashing Tony Dorsett, and it's just breaking my heart. I'm talking about him fumbling. I'm talking about the games he fumbled. I remembered them, and he's sitting there looking at me like, "You know what, man, that ain't fun." And I'm just sitting there going, "This is my idol." I can't. It just broke my heart. I was hoping to see him afterwards, and he wasn't there. And I thought, "Oh my God,
He didn't want no part of you, bro. You didn't want no part of you, man.
He just crushed me, man. To have to bash Tony Dorsett.
Oh my goodness, man! Come on, man. Oh man! Didn't you talk about his fumbles too?
Oh yeah, and I knew what the games he fumbled was. He didn't fumble that much. So, always the reputation was he fumbled. He did
right.
I mentioned the games that he fumbled, and they were legit because I know him. I know his record so well.
Right.
It just crushed me to have to go out there and cut a promo on Tony Dorsett.
Man, the Heat days. I mean, everybody's smart now, but even fans were smart back then. But they like to live through us, man, and that's what I enjoyed about the business, man. They lived through us, even if they were smart to everything, man, because we was giving them what they wanted to get that release from life, get that release from everyday buzz.
It's not like a movie where you sit there and you watch a screen and you don't get to interact. It's not like Broadway where it's live, but you don't get to interact. If you yell something, they'll throw you out of the theater.
Right.
And it's not like sports where when you yell something, you can influence what's going on in the ring. That doesn't happen in sports. You can yell, you can boo, but it doesn't affect the game really. It may affect, maybe.
Let me ask you this. How the product today that we see on WWE, that we see on Impact, what we see on AEW, what is your how do you like that? What is your opinions on all of that today?
I think there's some incredible talent, and I'm not going to be the old guy that comes along and says our generation was better.
No, I know what you're saying. I have to go through that a lot. Go ahead.
They're different, and like our generation, we're the first guys to get scripts to read promos. Most of our guys that are our age, a little bit older, they couldn't read a script to save their life.
Right.
And a lot of the young guys can't ad lib. Now that doesn't make the young guys wrong by not being able to ad lib. It doesn't make the old guys wrong by not being able to read scripts. But it's just different. It's just a different formula.
Yeah.
There's so much more going on in the ring. To me, I like just the old Randy Orton guys who tell Shakespeare guys, who tell it just an easy to understand story. But, I'm also 54 years old. I'm not the demo they're going after either. Maybe they do so many crazy things that, I couldn't do physically. So it's not a matter of, hey, I didn't do that. I didn't do that because I couldn't.
Well, guys, when we was coming up 54, their careers are just now winding down.
That's right.
I mean, the way these guys do now, what we're seeing now, you ain't gonna get close to that. You ain't gonna get. So you got to get all your money while you can. Just like football. You remember back when we was coming up, it was nothing as he got 35, 37 years old playing quarterback.
That's right.
Remember Pat Fisher?
Absolutely.
Pat Fisher was damn near 40 years old playing quarterback. Now you imagine a cornerback nowadays. Only a few get to their 30s, and that's an elite.
Yeah, they're such incredible athletes, and it's such a lifestyle of training. It's just different. We didn't have the cardio. We didn't have, we had guys who were incredibly well built, incredibly strong guys, but we didn't have all the stuff they have now, which is good. Which is, to our detriment. I think we could have been a lot better with the training they had now.
Right, but everything is such a fast pace. It's such a fast-paced product now. And the way I see it, fast paced, don't really tell a story, but it's fast paced and action. Kind of like the big movies, blockbusters now. So everything's blowing up and moving fast. You know what I'm saying? When I was coming up,
I don't know. I don't know. I'm sure the generation, before us looked at us and had all kinds of things they would have correct or changed.
Exactly. They're probably fast paced for them.
That's right. And these guys now are doing some incredible stuff. And you don't have crowds now because of COVID, but without COVID, they're drawing huge arenas still. The WWE Network is what a success that thing has been. I mean, everything's global now. And so it's hard to fault anybody when they've had the success like they've had.
Yeah. And that's what I always tell people, man. I always tell people that, man, wrestling ain't the same, this, that, and the other. I say, brother, if you look at anything, nothing's the same anymore. Nothing in pop culture is the same.
I remember when I signed with WWE, I went back to Texas for just a little bit, and I just want to get a little more ring work, to keep up, fresh and everything, and in shape. And they told me, said, "You're not going to WWE, are you?" And WWF then, and I said, "Yeah." I said, "You're really going to go up there? They're ruining the business." And I said,
"Oh, really?"
You know what? I said, "I can't pay my rent here in Texas. And I said, up there, if they're running the business, I'm about to make more money than I've ever made in my life.
Right.
Said, I'm going to go. Right. I'll go up there and be part of them ruining the business.
Now, man, I started watching you. Let's kind of change gears here. I started watching you on the Fox News Network doing the financial thing, man. How long did you do that, and how did you get into that, bro?
I'm still doing it with Fox Business.
Okay.
I worked on Wall Street for 3 years. So I was going to build a wind farm in West Texas where I grew up, and the deal fell through. But I'd worked with a local investment bank in New York, right on the corner of Water and Wall. And when the deal fell through, because the renewable energy credit market fell through and the whole deal just collapsed, and they said, we like what you did. Would you like to come to work for us? And that's when I just got hurt and my run was over. And I said, actually, I'd love to come work for you. So I went to work for 3 years on Wall Street doing deals, financial investment bank stuff. And the financial crisis happened, which kind of killed every deal unless you're Goldman Sachs. And so that's when I went back doing commentary and never went back to work on Wall Street. So that's kind of
surprised you saying that, because most people don't admit to that.
It's kind of weird to have this guy who had been this bad guy wrestler working on Wall Street. And so that's when Fox said, hey, we'd like to have you start coming on and talk about finances and stocks and things like that.
Okay.
And I've just been doing it ever since.
Okay. Well, hey, man, if I'd have known that, I would have came to you to help me out on a couple of investments that I lost money on.
We've all lost some money on investing. We were old enough to not be just living in a continuous bull market, which we've had since 2010. We had the 97 crisis, the 2000 crisis, the 2008 crisis, the 87 crisis, which we remember, but neither one of us had money to invest back then.
Yeah, but the 2008, 2009, that's the one that got me, man. Got me pretty good, bro.
Yeah,
I didn't see it coming, man. Huh?
Nobody dreamed that real estate prices could go down nationally, and everything was hedged off that bet. And once it did, it collapsed the financial system.
This is a true story. One of my customers, because I owned a detail shop at that time, one of my customers that came in, and he was like, hey, Stevie Ray, you got any money floating around? I said, well, I got some annuities and blah, 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 my retirement, my daughter's college fund, different things like that. Safe stuff, And he was like, go get all of your money and take it out. Take it out the bank, take it out your investment, take it out everything. Now I'm looking at this dude, like, his name was Mr. Williams. I don't know what his first name was, but he always brought his Cadillac in. Big, shiny, kind of champagne-colored Cadillac. And I was like, what are you talking about? He said, man, this big economic boom that we're seeing is going to bust, and I just want to let you know. Well, I'm like, this dude just coming to get his car cleaned up. What does he possibly know? But he used to always tell me about, he was talking to me about his real estate investments in other countries. He had a lot of stuff going on in South America. Some of the, I don't know, like Bolivia, and this, that, and the other, and Argentina and stuff like that. And I'm looking at the guy like, okay, because how, dog, I'm from the hood, man. Because how a lot of people, try to bullshit you and stuff like that. And brother, when it happened, I was like, Mr. Williams was right. And with my investment, my girl that handled my stuff called me up, telling me that this might be for you, JBL. Let's find out. Straight shooting with Stevie Ray. Holla at your boy. Hello? I guess he chickened out. But anyway, the girl that handled my stuff called me and it's like 33% of everything I've got, at least 33%, 29 to 33% is gone and it ain't never coming back. See what you did to me, JBL? See what you did to me, man. You could have warned me, man. But this guy told me this was going to happen like a year before it happened. I swear to God.
My wife called the whole thing. I mean, that's where she got listed in Time magazine, 100 most influential people in the world, 40 most powerful under 40 women in the world by Forbes. She told me on a Wednesday night, she was an analyst there in the Wall Street, and she told me, she said, I've got a big call tomorrow. And I said, well, what is it? and she said, we're going to have to eat with the guy eventually I went to work for on Wall Street. And she said, Citigroup's going to sell their dividend and sell assets and cut their dividend. And I said, it doesn't seem like it's a big deal. She went over the numbers and it made sense. I said, you're telling me that you're the only one on Wall Street that knows this? And she said, nobody has said it. Nobody said it. And nobody had. So she released the report the next morning, and she started getting death threats. The market was down $400 billion. Her name was on every single financial show about what does she know? She doesn't know what she's talking about. Who is this analyst calling all this stuff? Then Citigroup had an emergency meeting. They fired Chuck Prince, who was the CEO, and then they said, we're going to have to cut the dividend and sell assets. And all of a sudden, she became the darling of Wall Street. But I lived through the epicenter of that because of my wife making that call.
Really?
Yeah, it was actually called Vince, and I said, hey, Vince, and he goes, you want to stay home this weekend, right? And I said, yeah. He said, how bad is it? I said, she's getting death threats. It's unbelievable. Press is everywhere. And finally, when it came out that she was right, she became the darling of Wall Street. But that took a couple of days. It was a rough 48 hours.
Oh man, wow, bro, that's unbelievable, man.
I got to do one of the coolest things ever. One of the reasons I started up a charity was I went down to South Africa because my wife got invited down part of time.
Yeah, let's talk about that. I know you was telling me about some of the charities that you're involved in. Yeah, let's go in there a little bit.
To the 2010 Soccer World Cup, and I was going to go to Robben's Island with Nelson Mandela. But that's when we first started getting sick, so I never even got to meet him. But I did go with Desmond Tutu. And Desmond Tutu was part of Beyond Sport, and we went and visited this shanty town afterwards. But all came about because my wife was invited down to South Africa, and that's when I got this idea of using sport for change for real deep poverty kids. And that's what I've been doing for the last, good grief, 10, 12 years. It's working really hard. We've got a wonderful group. In fact, I'm getting on a board call tonight with Memphis Inner City Rugby. Get this. They're kids to me. They're not kids anymore. They've been quite a while. They have taken a 60% dropout rate in inner city Memphis. They have a 100% graduation rate with their kids, and 100% of their kids are getting placed somewhere after high school, either military, trade school, or college. They've given out over $1 million of scholarships by helping these kids get to these scholarships. I mean, they just do incredible work. I've got a board meeting tonight with them. It's Shane Young and Memphis Inner City Rugby. I mean, I think it's one of the best charities in the world, but it shows you what sport can do to transform kids. You use sport to get these kids in, then you help get them job skills and education and things they need in life.
Hey, man, that's amazing. What do you got coming up right now, man, other than all your charity work and things of that nature? Any place we're going to be able to see you at? Yeah,
I've got a cool show I'm doing right now, Follow the Action. I'm also doing stories with Briscoe and Bradshaw. That's just some old stupid story. We're having a lot of fun telling those stories. We had a great the story this last week talking about Pat Patterson and the rivalry between, say, Southern California and Northern California. Gorgeous George was Southern California, the Coliseum.
Right.
Pat Patterson, who came a little bit later, they weren't exactly at the same time, was the big guy in the north up at the Cow Palace. And but it's pretty interesting. Briscoe's been there for all this great stuff. So we're just having some fun. I don't know what we're doing.
Hey, brother, people want to hear this stuff. Just like having you on tonight, man. I got so much feedback from people. Want to hear from you. They want to see your face, man. They want to hear your voice because so many people grew up on what you did, man. And when people grow up on what you've done and you've taken them from one place to another through that journey, man. Hey, brother, you're still in their hearts. You're still in their hearts.
Now I just, when I was a heel, especially when I was on top, I was a heel 24 hours a day. And, I kind of got tired of that. You're mean to people in airports. You're mean, because you don't want people that see you in the airport, especially a person that is waiting for you. They're the ones that are going to be sitting in the front row.
Yeah.
You don't want them cheering you,
Right.
So, and I know it's old school. People don't like that now, but that's how we did it back then. And now I'm just like, hey, you were such a bad guy. I hated you. Now I'm just laughing. You're supposed to. Everybody hated me. I would have hated me too.
Oh, no, I went through used to go through the whole thing all the time. The guys wouldn't even speak to me in the airport. But I was just tired. They thought I was being mean. I'm just tired. It's 6 o'clock in the morning, bro. And I'm kind of grouchy at 6 in the morning. They said, well, you got to be like the guy on television did, But I wasn't. I didn't know.
I never let them sell merchandise. I never let them sell anything for JBL. I just said, I don't want anybody to like me. I don't want anybody to care about me. I want to be a bad guy. That's all I want to be.
Hey man, hey, well, you was a bad guy, and I loved every minute of it, brother. I loved every minute of it. But hey, man, we've done about an hour, and I appreciate you giving us this hour. And you know, my man was afraid to call in. Why, I don't know. He wanted to know about the Joey Styles thing. But if you're out there watching, man, don't ask me to do something like I told you. Call in and ask it, brother. And that's for all the fans out there too. But a lot of people get so into these stories, they don't want to stop listening, brother. It's like when your grandmother, when you was little, and your grandmother, you know, you 4, 5, 6 years old, and your grandmother comes in and tell you a story. I mean, that story is real, man. So that's how these fans are when guys like yourself are, you know, letting them into some of the behind the scenes stuff, man. And that's what I love about it, man. But hey, man,
Well,
appreciate your graciousness, bro.
You know, Stevie, I am so proud of you and your brother Booker. You've always
Appreciate
been.
it.
You guys drew money in the sportatorium, and nobody was drawing money back then. The Freebirds would come back and draw a little money. The Von Erichs come back and draw a little money. You guys drew money, and you were just good dudes, man. You're just salt of the earth, man.
Hey, brother.
I got to see you at the Hall of Fame.
Hey, yeah. Remember that time? Remember that time we was at the Hall of Fame, and you was like, you come up to me and say, "Hey, man, you remember we was all in Global? Who'd ever think we would be right here at this time?" You remember you said that? I was like, wow. Never thought about it like that, man. You know what I'm saying? Wow.
Well, you guys did great, man. I always talk about the greatest tag teams of all time. You know, I always, say, when they talk about the greatest tag teams, they talk about who's the second greatest, because you always got to put the Road Warriors first. You know, it's those guys. They just created everything. And
we had a chance. We had a chance to do a program with them, but they wouldn't let us do it. Did you know that?
That's a shame.
Yeah,
that's a shame.
They wanted to work with us. We wanted to work with them because we were always getting questions about them when we started getting the push. Do you guys think y'all can beat the Road Warriors? I mean, they would never mention anybody else. Do Booker T and Stevie Ray think they can beat the Road Warriors? And me and my brother would always go, "Hey, look, those guys beat up people in the 80s. The Rock and Roll Express, the Midnight Express, the Fabulous One, all these 200-pound guys. But hey, baby, I can get under 500 too. You got to deal with today's, we would call it millennium wrestlers. So if they get in the ring with us, we make them seem like they're going backwards. We were just, if that ever happened, we wanted the heat built up on. So when they came in, we was like, oh, this is, man. And they didn't do it. They put him with Sting. They put him with Sting and Lex Luger. Can you believe that?
Yeah.
Can you believe that? Me and Animal, up until, because I did his podcast earlier this year. Do you know we still talk about that to this day? God rest his soul, because we were going to go over to Cuba, but everything got canceled Everything got canceled because of the COVID. We was going over to, Andrew is putting that together, Andrew Anderson, and me and Animal were going to tag together. You know what I'm saying? We were going to tag together just to be something different. Andrew wanted to do that. He's like, "You have a problem? Can you and Animal tag together?" And I'm like, "I ain't got no problem with it." He was like, "I ain't got no problem with it." So we just been something. Hey, 2 tag teams tagging together in Cuba. I think he's trying to get 3 shows over, but it'll never happen now because God rest his soul. He passed recently, and
yeah, what a good dude. He and Hawk both. What good guys, man. I love those guys.
God, man. Oh God, man. I mean,
were they over? God, people that had never saw them live, they were over. I mean, by the time the 90s, they were past their huge peak.
No,
those guys in the 80s, there was nothing like them.
Nothing. So we was like giddy. When we get the chance to work, I'm quite sure you've had the same feelings when you're getting ready to work somebody that you've been watching for a long period of time. You're just like giddy. You know what I'm saying? In the ring, you're just like, wow, man, I'm a fan. You know what I'm saying? But
we got to work.
You try not to act like it though.
Me and Ron got to work the Road Warriors in a Chicago street fight in Chicago.
Right.
That was a real thrill. That was a lot.
I remember that. Well, man, we're gonna let you go, man. But for everybody out there watching, man, follow this man on on all the social media outlets. You know what I'm saying? Twitter,
all
Facebook,
the social media
Instagram.
stuff. And really, the only thing I do on social media, I promote our show, Follow the Action. I'm having a lot of fun with some sports cameras.
Okay.
Sports. The main thing I try to do is raise awareness for my charities that I work with. There's a lot of people that are being lost because of COVID. Especially in inner cities, and I think that's just unfair. And hopefully, some things can be done about it.
I hope so too, man. Because man, at the end of the day, brother, things are hoping, everybody's praying things go back to normal, some kind of normalcy, so we can get this economy back going again. We can get out to see each other, shake hands, the whole deal. And I'm praying for that day to come. So it is what it is. But hey, man, thank you for gracing the podcast today, the world's most dangerous podcast. We have dangerous people on here, ladies and gentlemen. JBL is a dangerous man. He's a top man. He's a man that, follow his charities, follow what he's doing, from a financial guru to an impresario. That's what this guy is. And on top of that, great guy, great wrestler, great human being. And hey, man, thank you for coming on today. That's my dog, another Texas guy. See,
I love you, brother. Thank you.
Love you too, dog. Hey, man, before you go, where you staying right now? Where you living now?
Bethesda, Maryland. I moved out of Bermuda and moved to right near Washington, D.C.
D.C. That's where the hospital is. That's where the hospital is. Bethesda. That's where they took JFK. You know that, right?
I did know that. Now that you mentioned, I knew it. I didn't right off the top, but yeah. A lot of politicians and stuff here. I can do without. But.
Hey, you right in the midst of it, brother. But I appreciate it, man. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, man. Good talking to you.
All right, dog. You too, bro.
Bye-bye.
Hey, man. I hope you guys enjoyed that, man. That's my man, JBL. Well, we're going to get ready to get out of here. Glad everybody kind of rode along. Queen gave me some advice about my Twitch wasn't on so you could see it, but it didn't look like I was logged in, but don't matter. As long as people could see it. Next week, we got a couple of big shows coming up, and I'll see you guys on Slapjack Monday with Jimmy Tibbs, and we're going to chop it up again. Appreciate y'all watching the show. For my man JBL, I'm Stevie Ray. This is Straight Shooting with Stevie Ray, and I am